So the entire Volkswagen Atlas family is refreshed for this 2024 model year. It is the first time that the Atlas has been majorly facelifted since it arrived in 2017. The Atlas Cross Sport, which is the two-row model, also gets many of the same changes since it was introduced in the 2020 model year. So up front, we are going to see both Atlas models, all except for the base model, are going to get this new lighting, signature lighting setup. You get LED headlights on every single model, LED running lights on all but the base model, and every model except the base is going to have this light bar across the grille, and the Volkswagen logo is actually going to light up at night, which looks really cool. This is kind of a more boring gray, but we do have some interesting colors here. They've added this really nice blue that you can only get on the Cross Sport, which we'll look at hopefully a little bit later, and there is a nice green that is available on the Peak edition of the Atlas. So we are looking at the three-row version of the Atlas right now. This is the SEL Premium R-Line, so this is the most fully loaded version of the Atlas that you can get, which is why we have these 21-inch wheels. 18-inch wheels are what comes standard on the Atlas. You can also get 20s, but 21s are what's going to come on this SEL R-Line. You also have the little R badge letting you know that you have the R-Line. You don't get any like sporty changes or anything like that. It is all appearance. Now here at the back, we also see a slightly different rear setup than what we have before. Volkswagen has extended the spoiler on both this and on the Cross Sport. The lighting signature is a little bit different at night. Again, just like at the front, all except for the base model is going to have this nice connected light bar, and the Volkswagen logo is actually going to light up in red as well, which I think is really nice. We do have our 4Motion logo letting us know that we have all-wheel drive. You've got your trim badge over here letting us know that we have an SEL trim, and then just like a lot of Volkswagen Audi products, we do have our fake exhaust here down here. Now in terms of trunk space, the Atlas is one of the biggest three-row mid-size crossovers that money can buy. Even with the third row up, you're going to have just over 20 cubic feet of space back here. If you drop that down, that's going to go up to about 55 cubic feet of space, and if you drop down both rows, you're going to have a whopping 96 cubic feet of space. In fact, the only SUVs in the category that are bigger than this are the Toyota Grand Highlander and the Chevy Traverse, which both have just a little bit more. But look at how much space you get here in the back of the Atlas. It is absolutely massive. And then you do have to come around here to the sides. These do drop down, and I do want to show you how they drop down because Volkswagen did some really nice engineering here where this base kind of drops down a little bit, and you get a really, really flat load floor here that not a lot of other vehicles in the segment do. That is perfectly flat, so good on Volkswagen for engineering it like that. Now the back seat is quite nice as well. We've got about 37 inches of legroom back here. We have the bench seat option, but Volkswagen is one of the few automakers that doesn't lock you in to captain's chairs on the upper trim level. For about $500 extra, you can turn this into captain's chair, so you can get it either way. If you want the practicality of having a full 7-seater, you can get it this way with the bench, or if you only need 6 seats, you can get the captain's chairs. Now, as I mentioned, we've got really nice legroom here. I can slide this seat forward if I don't need as much legroom. I've got my own climate controls, heated seats, no ventilated seats back here in the Atlas, and we do have USB-C ports, and we have a household outlet down here with our own air vents. We also have sunshades here on this top model. That is a really nice feature that I've seen a lot of SUVs in this segment doing. Volkswagen touts that you can actually put 3 full-size car seats in here, and you can still tip these seats forward with the car seats in place. And without car seats, this is a massive gap to get into the third row. Like, I don't care if you're an old person, you could easily fit in this gap. Very good accessibility here into the third row. I will say though, the third row does only have 2 seats. You're not going to be able to get 3 people back here. But then as I pull this back, like so. Now this seat is not fully back in place, but I do have a decent amount of legroom back here. I've got some cup holders. I have my air vents. I even have USB-C ports back here. So this is a full 3-row SUV that you could comfortably put 7 people into. And now let's look at the front seat of the Atlas and check out all of the new technology that's available on this 2024 model year. Again, we're driving an SEL Premium, meaning we have this really nice diamond quilt leather. This looks looks like a seat that you could get in something like an Audi. It is really nice. This is heated and ventilated standard, actually, on all 2024 Atlas models. I can't think of another vehicle on sale, definitely not at this price, that has heated and ventilated seats as standard. We do have the nicer leather here because we have the SEL Premium, but you can get leatherette on the lower trims. We also have a memory seat down here with all of our power control functions. Now let's go start it up because it is rather hot today. And we're going to talk about some of the new technology here inside the Atlas that we have seen in other Volkswagen models, starting with the ID.4, some of which I like, some of which I definitely do not like. So you now get this standard 12-inch touchscreen, and it is very large and it is very clear. I do actually kind of like the graphics, but I'm really not a big fan of the layout for several reasons. One, everything is buried within a menu. There's so many different menus that you have to get in and out of. Even the climate control, you have to hit this button down here that says Clima, then you can adjust the fan speed. Super annoying that there's not just a ribbon that stays up here or some kind of split screen. In fact, there is kind of a split screen. So here's your navigation. This always stays black like it is. So you have your home button, you have your clock, and then you have your heated and ventilated seat controls down here. But that's such a bad use of space. There's just so much black area here. I'm really not a big fan of this setup, and I really don't like how you have to use these touch capacitive buttons to raise or lower the temperature. You can also say, hey Volkswagen, set the temperature to 60 degrees. Which I'll admit works pretty fine, but I don't necessarily always want to talk to my car to get the quickest results. And especially this touch slider to use for the volume, oh my God, I wish I had a knob back. Now, Volkswagen has given interviews where they say that they've noticed the customer feedback and they are going to go back to putting more buttons and knobs into things, but the Atlas was just stuck in a product cycle where they had this and this had to go in, and now we're just kind of stuck with it. Ditto for the shifter. It's the same shifter that you get in the GTI. The actual shifting part is fine. Push up for reverse, you're going to get a nice 360 degree camera on the upper trims. What I don't like is that the park button is positioned right next to the engine stop start. Guarantee you're going to mix these up at one point or another, because I definitely have. What I do like here is the virtual cockpit display. This is a 10.25-inch virtual digital cockpit Pro. So it's very easy to use. You can click the view button here on the steering wheel, and it will change what is on the gauge cluster here. Not sure, there we go. Let's get rid of that message. So view, so we had our map view. This is more of the full map. You can have your driver assists. You can have just kind of a basic speedometer. This is the R1. The Peak Edition gets its own unique gauge as well. And then you can kind of just have your basic cluster. And you can also change what's on the left, what's on the right, and what's on the middle very easily as well. Let me get it back to the main gauges. So you click this button here on the left, and now you can kind of scroll up and down with what you want to be inside that little gauge. Ditto for the right one. You can just click that and have whatever you want on here, fuel tank display, whatever. Super customizable. I really like that. Also notice that unlike the Volkswagen Golf GTI, these are actual buttons, not touch capacitive, which I really like as well. You also have some nice things like 30 color ambient lighting. We've got a little storage cubby underneath the center console here. We do have Harman Kardon audio here on this top trim. They used to have Fender audio, but they've switched to Harman Kardon, which I really like. And we do have a panoramic glass roof that stretches all the way back on this top model. I am very impressed with kind of the trim and materials here. We've got lots of soft touch. This is not real wood, but it does have kind of a finish to make it feel like it's real wood. We've got nice perforated leather all on the doors. Just a very nice premium place to be, and I do think that this does feel worth the price range on the upper end. Now, before we take the Atlas out on the road, I do want to show you the Atlas Cross Sport because because it is a different model. This is the two-row that more closely competes with vehicles like the Honda Passport, the Hyundai Santa Fe, and the Chevy Blazer. You can see that the front ends are very similar. They've tried to differentiate it a little bit, but honestly, I can't really tell the two apart all that much. You will be able to spot an Atlas Crossport if you see this color. It's called Kingfisher Blue, and it's not available on the full-size Atlas, which I think is a little bit of a shame because it's a gorgeous looking color. You can see that the Crossport is about 5 inches shorter overall than the three-row Atlas, and you do have a very different looking rear end. You can see that the shape has almost like a coupe-like appearance to it. I think this is a really good looking vehicle in the two-row space, and it is interesting that they give the Atlas and the Atlas Crossport the same sort of name rather than making them two very distinct models. Now here on the inside of the Crossport, we are going to see very similar stuff to what we saw on the regular Atlas. The big difference here is that if you get the black interior on this SEL Premium R line, you're going to see that there's kind of like a blue backing to the seat. It looks really cool in person. Again, this just looks very Audi-like to me. The rest of the dash is pretty much identical to what you're going to get in the regular Atlas, although I do really like this perforated steering wheel. And we do have some different material here on the dash. You have this kind of metal finish, almost like a carbon weave finish that is a little bit different than the wood that we saw on the three-row Atlas. Overall, still a really nice interior. And because the Crossport does not have a third row, Volkswagen was actually able to push these seats back a little bit. They do not slide as they do in the regular Atlas, but you get over 40 inches of legroom here in the back of the Crossport. I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate. It is a massive amount of space. Like, it is like a limousine back here. This is a fantastic amount of space if you were doing Uber rides or something like that. Still have air vents, heated seats because we are in an upper trim level model, and we do have still our sun blockers as well here in the second row. And last but not least, with the Atlas Crossport, let's look at the cargo area where we've got over 40 cubic feet of space here in the trunk. It is huge. Like, I literally can't even reach the second row from here. That would be nice if Volkswagen did put some kind of way to drop down the second row from the trunk, but unfortunately not. You do have to go over to the rear to do it. We do have some nice cargo hooks on both sides that I forgot to mention on the regular Atlas. And then if we go ahead and fold these seats, you can do that the same way that you do in the Atlas. They do fold very flat. It's gonna open up to just under 78 cubic feet of space. Along with the Honda Passport, which is a key competitor here, the Crossport is one of the biggest two-row mid-size SUVs that money can buy. This is a cavernous amount of space. Now let's get behind the wheel of the facelifted 2024 Volkswagen Atlas and talk about some of the changes that Volkswagen made under the hood. And the big difference here is that there is no more VR6 engine. So if you're familiar with the VR6, it was kind of a narrow angle V6 that shared one cylinder head. It was kind of an interesting engine, and it has a really good reputation for when it was in vehicles like the Golf R32. But if I'm going to be honest, I really kind of hated it in the last year's Atlas. It just didn't have enough torque. You really had to rev it out to like 5,000 RPM to get peak power. So it just didn't feel like the right engine for this size of SUV. So now the only engine that you can get on any Atlas for 2024 is a 2-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. It's the familiar EA 888 that's in basically every Volkswagen Group product, including Audi's. And they have improved the power significantly over the 4-cylinder from last year's model. It now makes 269 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. Remember, the VR6 was 276 horsepower and 266 pound-feet. So this is really close to the amount of power that you used to get from the VR6, and you actually get more torque from this new 4-cylinder. All of that power goes out through an 8-speed automatic transmission on every Atlas trim. You can get front-wheel drive on the lower trims. Most of the upper trims are going to come standard with Volkswagen's 4Motion all-wheel drive system, and Volkswagen says that about 70% of Atlas sales are going to be made up of that all-wheel drive system. We're driving an SEL Premium R line right now, so we do have the 4Motion on this vehicle. Now, the Atlas can tow up to 5,000 pounds, which is the same as last year, but I really like this new 4-cylinder engine. You have the power and the torque of last year's VR6 motor, but it arrives earlier, so I'm going for a little bit of acceleration here, and I don't feel like the engine is super stressed out. It's pretty quiet. The gearbox is very well tuned, that it gives me a nice little downshift, even when I'm just driving around in the base comfort mode. And I basically just feel like I have a lot more oomph under me, even though I've lost 2 cylinders. And in terms of fuel economy, this new 4-pot is more efficient than the VR6 as well. With front-wheel drive, you're gonna get 20 in the city, 27 on the highway, and 23 combined. Those numbers do drop a little bit if you get the 4Motion, and if you wanna get the Atlas Cross Sport, which is a little bit smaller than the 3-row Atlas, your fuel economy does go up by about 1 mpg average, but it's not a huge difference. I'm not gonna be driving the Atlas Cross Sport in this video, but it basically feels very similar to the regular Atlas, just a little bit smaller. Both of these vehicles feel their size. That is something that I think other vehicles in this segment maybe do a little bit better, that they feel a little bit smaller. If you like the feeling of kind of conquering the road and feeling like you're in a very large, spacious vehicle, the Atlas does do that. It feels very wide from here behind the driver's seat. I will say that even with the 21-inch wheels, there is not a lot of vibration coming into the cabin when I hit rough road surfaces. There is a little bit of noise coming off of those tires though, a little bit of road noise that I feel like would be mitigated if you got some smaller wheels. And we do also have Volkswagen's IQ Drive, which has some level 2 semi-autonomous technology. This is a really good standard safety suite that you get on every Atlas model. So once again, I'm kind of just blown away by the amount of standard tech that Volkswagen has packed into this car. I think that Volkswagen is finally embracing, at least in the American market, the idea of being a people's car, giving the people all of the features they want, but keeping it at a really good, nice price, at least on the low end. So I don't know if this refreshed Atlas makes leaps and bounds to become my favorite driving vehicle in this segment, because the Kia Telluride and Hyundai Palisade are just so strong, as is that new Toyota Grand Highlander. But I definitely think that they've made the Atlas better in a lot of ways, and I'm very happy with the changes that they've made under the hood and out on the road. So that was the 2024 Volkswagen Atlas family. Pricing for the Cross Sport is going to start at $36,715, and it goes all the way up to about 51 grand. Now, the larger Atlas is only a little bit more expensive, starting at $37,725, and that goes all the way up to $52,455 for the top trim level. I don't think that the Atlas and the Atlas Cross Sport have done enough to make me sing their songs as the greatest vehicles in their respective classes, but these are really nice improvements, and they offer some amazing features like heated and ventilated seats that you can't get up until much higher up in other automakers' trim levels. So for the first time, I think in a long while, the Volkswagen brand properly represents its people's car ethos, offering people a affordable vehicle that still gives them all of the features that they love and crave. Both the Atlas and the Atlas Cross Sport are better than they have ever been. I really hope you've enjoyed this look at the 2024 Volkswagen Atlas and Atlas Cross Sport. For more videos like it, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to be alerted of our latest videos. I'll see you next time.